mà sập tôi là lên nó cũng rồi lôi sắp ra là mẹ cô lưu tôi rồi này ai bà mẹ anh lưu thì anh lấy anh nó nên mà anh không mang anh mà anh mà cả con như ai đâu cái lệ mẹ ta cái không mang anh mà
Zachary Idimanyak is singing about the time of Pivio, the great hunter of the Eskimos. 10 years ago, Zachary himself was a great hunter. Out on the sea ice, Zachary, his hunting partners, and their families are moving to a new area. It is winter, time for the seal hunt. But this is the winter of 1965, the last trek they would make before their new houses arrived. A joint American-Canadian team filmed this record of a way of life that was no more than a memory for most of the Eskimo groups scattered throughout the Canadian Arctic. It was an accident of geography that allowed the Netsilik Eskimos, the people of the seal, to remember their ancient way of life right up to the 1960s. Fur traders, a major outside influence on the Eskimo people of Canada, had not been able to establish a trading post here because sea ice to the north blocked access by ship. The Netsilik did not remain absolutely isolated, but they remembered enough to reconstruct for the camera a complete record of their old ways. Zachary has selected this area to establish a winter camp. They will stay here only so long as there are seals to catch. Then they must move on. Seal hunting through the ice in winter is immensely difficult. These men, about a dozen in all, will need to hunt in a group, and it is the hunting group which has always dictated the very basis of the Netsilik way of life. Throughout the 6 winter months, this group will live together. In summer, when fish and caribou are plentiful, the men can afford to hunt separately. But for winter, they have a saying: we either hunt together or we starve. It is morning. The men go hunting. The women and children will stay in camp. The Netsilik are famous for their dogs. These dogs are vital. Only they will be able to sniff out the seals under the ice. Hunting groups are formed for a lifetime. Nobody commands the group, but traditionally the most successful hunter is looked upon as an informal leader. In this case, the leader is Zachary. A hunter never says, I am going after a seal. Instead, he says, I am going to try and get a hunting share. Back at the camp, the families must wait. An Eskimo woman has her own property: her seal oil lamp, her knife, her caribou bone sewing needles, her soapstone cooking pot. She brings these with her when she marries, and she takes them with her if she leaves her husband. Although Eskimos often eat their meat raw, they also like cooked meat, or hot blubber, or sometimes seal blood soup. A few miles from camp, about an hour's journey, the hunters have arrived in an area where they hope to find the seal. They are not here by chance. During the previous autumn, Zachary and the others have been studying the formation of the sea ice. Here it forms slowly enough, they think, for the seals to be able to keep a series of breathing holes clear. Each seal may they have 10 to 15 holes which are continually kept open by scratching at the ice with the claws in their flippers. First, the dogs must find a breathing hole. Zachary runs his harpoon through the snow to the ice beneath. If the hole is clear, recently used, there must be a seal in the area. He can see water. This is the place. Now he can tell his hunting partners they must each find another of the seal's breathing holes. Zachary explores the shape of the hole. When the seal comes up to breathe, Zachary will have only one chance for a kill. He must thrust his harpoon in exactly the right direction. He covers the hole to avoid extra light, which would alarm the seal. Then he leads the dogs away, so there won't be any noise. A single strand of swan's down, attached to caribou sinew with frozen saliva, will provide him with his only sign that the seal has arrived beneath the ice. He places it above the breathing hole. The swan's down will flutter with the smallest breath of the seal. All that remains to be done is wait and watch. But the seal may not visit Zachary's breathing hole. So his hunting partners are going through the same preparations throughout the area. The idea, of course, is to increase their chances of a catch. Their partnership may mean the difference between survival and death. Many winters go by in which few seals are caught. Unless there are large stores of fish and game piled up under stones for such emergencies, people will starve. Eskimo history is full of tragic tales. It was customary for the older people to be left to starve first, even though they are much revered. The hunter must be the last to stop eating, as he is the family's only hope for survival. The fear of starvation was also the reason for the former practice of female infanticide. Baby girls were sometimes left to die, as the family felt it could not support women who would not grow up into hunters. Although this is a hard life, probably harder than anyone who hasn't experienced it can appreciate, it is not an unhappy life. For Sidoni Kringatok and her baby boy, there is time for play. Twice as an infant, Sidonie almost froze to death after falling off the family sleeping platform onto the freezing floor of the igloo. She spent part of her childhood at a school further south on Hudson's Bay. In 1962, she married a man from Pelly Bay, and like Martha, she returned to be close to her people and her land. Zachary pretends he nearly missed. Hunters are expected to be modest. A single seal is often the result of a day's hunting by several men. There is no abundance of seals in the land of the Netsilik. The best hunters think themselves fortunate indeed if they manage to catch 30 seals in a season. The hunter must remain on good terms with the animal he hunts. Now the seal has been caught, the partners gather to observe the proper ritual. A seal is believed to have a mortal body and an immortal soul. Thus the same seal can be caught again and again if the hunter pleases its soul. The Netsilik believe that seals know where animals are treated well and will always make their way back to such people. This is the ritual the hunting partners must follow. Together, they share some blubber and the fresh, raw liver. With the exception of a few wild berries in the summertime, the Netsilik eat nothing but meat and fat. When hunting is good, they may eat more than 10 pounds a day. The Cree Indians call these people eaters of raw meat, or Eskimos, and this is the name by which we know them. But they call themselves the Inuit, which means the men preeminently, or the people. 10 years later, in their new village, Zachary, Iti Maniak, and the others watched the films they made. They wanted to make the films for a particular reason. Sidonie Kringatok explains.
When they first informed us that the films were going to be used for educating the younger generation, I didn't mind it. I understood the purpose. In fact, I was happy about it. Today, the kids don't get to see the traditional way of doing things. So I was glad to help make these movies.
Sidoni knew that the traditional way of doing things was coming to an end. The Netsilik had already begun settling down around this bay, Pelly Bay, where a priest had built a small mission and store. But in the summer of 1967, when the prefabricated houses were flown in, the foundation of their life was changed. They were no longer nomads, but townsmen. In the following years, the Canadian government provided electricity, heating oil, and a social worker to show the people of Pelly Bay how to use their new houses. The Netsilik could begin to accumulate possessions for the first time. Something that was impossible when they lived in igloos or tents and traveled with all their belongings from place to place. On the beach, the hunters have boats with outboard motors. They still hunt for food, but machines have now replaced slow-moving dog sleds. There's a school run by 4 teachers from the south with 2 Eskimo teaching assistants. And overlooking the town is the first building of Pelly Bay, the old stone church. The townspeople earn some money by selling seal skins, furs, and carving, and through a few government-supported jobs. A fish freezing plant, government-built, sends Arctic char to the south. Profits go to the town. Why did people like Zachary, who for all his years had wandered from hunting site to hunting site, agree to live in a house?
In the earlier days, after the houses first arrived, I still preferred living in the igloos. But now that I'm getting older and weaker, I prefer living in a house. But when I think about the past, it gives me much joy.
But those days are gone forever, even for Zachary and for his brother Bernard. The Netsilik don't hunt at the breathing hole in winter anymore. But they are still the people of the seal. A modern rifle and an ancient chant call out to their old friend. Hunting with a bow and rifle is relatively easy. A single hunter can catch more than enough food for himself and his family. He doesn't need his old partners for success, only for companionship. Now a boat ride on a summer afternoon, rather than a long wait on the winter ice, is all that's required. The Netsilik attitude to seals is now a mixture of old and new. From the time when the first rifles allowed a single man to make a kill, they decided to abandon the traditional ritual of sharing liver and blubber. But Zachary retains the modesty expected of a great hunter. He nearly missed, he claimed. The contest between man and seal was a close one. In the past, one seal could have fed a whole band of hunters and their families. The blubber would heat many igloos. The skin would make clothes or tents. But today the skin is sold for $30 if the bullet hole isn't too bad. And only the choicest morsels will be used as food. Instead of a whole camp of people, Zachary is greeted only by his own family. Martha reflects on how it used to be.
In the times when we used to all go out camping together and hunt for seal, the men would all go out, and when one man would catch a seal, they would bring it back to the camp. His wife would cut it into small pieces, and the people would come over, especially the women and kids, and take a part of the seal. The boys might be given eyes, the girls a drink of blood. The only thing that would be left for the man who caught the seal was the head and maybe a small piece of fat. That's how it was in those times.
The seal was divided according to a complicated set of rules based on the hunting partnership itself, and the hunters even called each other by names describing parts of the seal. If two men gave each other's families the shoulders of the seal they caught, they called one another Aksat Koliga, my shoulder. Zachary and Bernard, in their lifetime partnership, called each other Kuyak, my ribs. When hunting was good, the group built a ceremonial igloo with smaller ones attached for each family. In this way, people could spend more time together, away from the harsh world outside. It was a special time of sharing and contentment. Now, times are different.
Okay, the score is Team 1. It's got 5 points. Team 2 is 4 points, okay? Maria, I think you're next. Okay, 897 plus 206. Not the easiest one on the board.
When you spend money, you have to learn how to add and subtract. Maria, Zachary's niece, is an avid student and may be among the very few who will leave Pelly Bay to go on to high school. 10 years ago, Maria's mother was teaching her how to live in the wilderness. Children learned everything from their parents. There were no other teachers, nor any other lessons. And 10 years ago, Martha and Zachary were teaching several children to play a favorite game, cat's cradle. All that is needed is a bit of string and a good storyteller. When everything one owns must fit on a sled, there is no room to carry along playthings. But today, the parents are paid to come to the school twice a week to teach their children a little about the old days. Now, like other Canadian children, they learn from school teachers about their society. But their society is part of two worlds. You can see both ways, the old and the new, at this meeting of the town to elect representatives to Inuit Tapirasat, the Eskimo Brotherhood. The representatives who are elected here will travel to meetings of the Brotherhood throughout the Northwest Territories and in Ottawa, the seat of Canadian government. Meetings to try to resolve the problems faced by all the Eskimos of northern Canada. Of utmost importance is the issue of land claims. Will the Eskimos be able to control the way in which their land is used in the future? They don't want oil pipelines crossing their territory or the exploitation of mineral resources without strong protection for their wildlife. And that's what this meeting is all about, to elect people from Pelly Bay to represent their interests to the Canadian government. Eskimos want the land to remain a hunting ground, filled with caribou, fish, seals, polar bear. The Brotherhood has set up a land claims commission to study what consequences would follow from oil exploration and land development. And some people are beginning to feel that even the comfort and security of the houses are not enough to make up for the loss of their old way of life. They are moving back to the land and living as they used to, as nomads. Not many people, none from Pelly Bay, but enough to act as a constant reminder to all the Eskimos of what they have given up. They are coming to the conclusion that they didn't just get houses and material luxuries when they settled down. They also began to give up the structure of their old way of life.
Now I go to meetings down south, and we have more say about what should be done in our own land. If we let the government do everything, then we would have no control over the land, the game, and the animals. We should work together, even though we are not from the same communities. We should work together, and that way we will be stronger and more organized. We are thinking about the younger generation. If we don't work together, something bad will happen in the future. Something sad.
But something sad may not happen. Although more obviously modern and influenced by the outside world, the younger generation sings of the desire to know the ways of the past as well as the present.